Chris?
Yeah, and I think that the reality is the portals themselves will have responsibility for bettering the offerings. It'd be in their best interest to do that so that they have success, so more people will come to those portals.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And Chris has put together a group of people who are discussing trying to create portals. His group is called Twin Cities Community Investment Portal. I would encourage you to reach out to Chris if you'd like to learn a bit more about what they've been discussing.
Well, that's an interesting word. Let's talk about the portal element of that, what that means, what the virtual component and the online actual fundraising piece of this is about. Is there a difference between somebody who's a registered broker-dealer and somebody who's not in the legal eyes?
Well, I've been talking quite a bit, so Marshall, do you feel comfortable answering this question between a BD and a non-BD?
No, but I can. Knowing what I was talking about when we were answering the question, but these portals that are out there, you can have your company and offer your investment and just run it on a portal. We've chosen taking a different tack. We're running our own portal. We have our own website, and we're not running on somebody else's portal because I'm a control freak and I can't handle that. And also, and this is not to put down any of the portals necessarily, but I felt that reporting wasn't what it should be. We want to over-report and be very, very transparent and kill people with information. And some of the portals really weren't up to speed. And also, I was it's kind of funny being in this industry because like the old veterans, the portals that have been around forever are 18 months old. You know, like it's a new industry. It didn't exist 2 years ago. And so I was seeing a lot of these portals kind of having some economic problems, or their business plan was kind of reliant on the fact that the SEC would have come up with some regulations by now, and they would have been making money, and now they're not, and so they're going away. So that's true for credentialing companies, that's true for crowdfunding escrow companies, and it's true for portal companies. So I felt like, you know, let's do this all in-house. We do have an outside credentialing company and an escrow company, but we run our own portal. So okay. Portals are basically websites that other investments can come on and use their platform and their reporting platform.
Interesting. Senator Bono, from your vantage point, going into legislative season, what's your prognosis for this bill? What do you see as any points of resistance or friction amongst your peers?
My prognosis is cautiously optimistic, but I want to just say a political statement about perhaps the reticence of the SEC's action, because I'm a little bit skeptical that it's all about worrying about consumer fraud, especially given your comments that in countries where they've been doing this, there hasn't been widespread consumer fraud. So I have to also ask, what are the backgrounds of those on the SEC? I mean, aren't you talking about a pretty entrenched group of individuals who have long-standing ties to the investment banking and the banking community and the financial community? And so here we're saying, oh, individuals can operate without that. And that has people in that world, as you can imagine, wonder, well, what is the future of their profession? Now that may or may not be grounded in reality because we're talking about pretty small numbers here. We're not talking about going out and raising $10 million in this. Means we're talking about baby steps. But I think whenever you take on an existing industry with a practice that's going to take down fences and open up exchanges, then you get a lot of concern. And so I think the same skepticism and the reticence that you've seen on behalf of the SEC could show up here in Minnesota. And so I think you'll hear a lot about consumer fraud. That's what people will talk about, but I think we have to look beyond that and really understand the concerns that could go beyond that. And so we'll see who are the ones who are saying this is a concern, and then we'll want to address that.
Do you have any bankers in the room? Any bankers on the set? They're all concentrated.
As long as you have the mic in your hand, Senator, where do you think the governor is with this issue? Do you have any input at all?
So the way that I would get input with regard to the governor would be through his administration, and the agency that would be the direct link to the governor would be the Department of Commerce. And so I have spoken to the commissioner about this and told the commissioner how important that it was to our community. The commissioner has told me that he will give it strong consideration and that he'll let me know of his concerns. He hasn't yet come back to me with concerns, but I would say that this particular agency has a strong history of being pretty consumer protection focused. And so I do anticipate that some of the discussion will be about that. And so, you know, you spoke about having people in this room contact their state senators or state representatives. Even more importantly, given the early support of legislators, would be to contact those who know folks in the governor's office or in the Department of Commerce.
I understand your answer, but I have to tell you that worries me.
I'm always candid.
No, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking
I know.
about
Yeah, I'm
the
concerned.
Secretary of Commerce. I mean, that just sounds like a big put off to me.
Well, let's not assume that. Have a very strong, long-standing relationship, the Commissioner of Commerce. So I expect that he will let me know what his concerns are. So that's why I'm cautiously optimistic.
What worries you?
Pardon?
What worries you?
I guess I'm reading between the lines, and I've had my own experience with this Department of Commerce, and it's not been good. And early in this meeting, I heard the word decline in the situation, and the situation today is nothing like it was 20 and 30 years ago. So I think there's a bigger issue here, in that given the nature of the Senate and the House and the past track record of, let's say, just the last 15 years, is that we don't really have a proactive state here in terms of any of these economic issues, except for football stadiums and basketball conferences. There's no hardcore force that's helping Minnesota to move forward. When I went through my drill, you know, I spent 3 days, 3 months ago, trying to make contact with the state of Minnesota on various issues relative to the growth of my company. I couldn't get anywhere. So I decided, hey, we're not that far from Wisconsin. I picked up the phone, and I got a call at 10 o'clock the next morning from the head of the Commerce Department. And she wanted to know what help did I need, you know.
Okay.
So
Thanks for the perspective on it.
Just a quick comment back. I thank you for those comments. I promise you, I'm your champion on behalf of the state of Minnesota, and it's my intention that we're going to show you that the state of Minnesota does care about economic growth, and this can be a good example of that. And my assistant's in the room, Sean Oyas. If you ever need something from the state of Minnesota and you have a roadblock, you call our office and we'll get back to you.
We have a question here at the far side.
I'd like to know where the $2 million and $5 million audit levels came from, and if there's stark differences between the program you're putting together and other states, for example.
Did anyone hear the question? It was about where the $2 million and the $5 million caps and audit level came from, and how MNvest compare or contrast to what is happening in other states.
That's a great question. The answer is that these caps are largely in line with peer states that have passed their own laws. So, you know, it's a moving target, to be frank. You know, depending on the type of feedback that we get from the community, we are happy to adjust it. We want to make sure that whatever we propose officially in about 4 weeks, that it is something that is workable and could be passed by both chambers, but would love your input if you think these levels are too low or too high.
Another key piece of it is, I believe it's section E and F, which talks about the individual investor cap for the non-accredited investor, which according to legislation is currently set at $10,000 annually. What that means is that, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, for non-accredited investors who do want to participate in MNvest, they are, as the way it's written right now, limited to only being able to put $10,000 in a year. Now, is that a lot or a little? Is that the appropriate amount? Is that consistent with what we're seeing in other states? TBD, but I think if we're going to be doing something like this, my challenge to MNvest and the sponsors would be to increase that, increase the chances of those who do participate and put more money to work and have more upside opportunity. My 2 cents. Katie, as an entrepreneur, you raised $40,000 in Indiegogo. To Gordon's point, you did the incentive-based style, right? Because there is no equity crowdfunding or non-accredited. If MNvest were an option 3 months ago when you did your campaign, would you have considered it? If so, why? If not, why?
Absolutely, a lot of things have gone through my mind just listening to everyone else speak. And I said before, it really ends up being a bridge for us. I was telling Gordon as we were sitting at our table that while I'm a business owner, I don't have a business background because of the nature of what I do, and so there's a huge gap for us as business owners that we aren't speaking the same language as a lot of these investor conversations are, and it should be daunting because it should be a process and we should have to work our what's up to get there, but at the same time, if there's a platform that can help us as business owners who, I believe that what we're doing is a need, not a want, and I'm biased clearly, but I think it's a need. I think it's a need beyond a lot of other things that are getting funded that are fun. Ours is hopefully life-changing at some capacity, and so for us to have something like this, we'd absolutely consider it, and we do consider it in other platforms, absolutely.
What was your incentive to get people to give you $40,000?
Oh boy. So it took us about 5 months to actually create our reward structure. We are a technology, and so we don't have a physical product that I can necessarily send you. And so one of the biggest hurdles that we found was, what are we going to give them for $500 to $500? And so the platform that we're creating is a technology website, in which case there is a lot of value in it. And so I don't know if it would be easy for me to tell you what that is from a time perspective here, but they get membership to that. So it's an ongoing membership-based, there's a freemium aspect to our, I should say a free aspect to our site, but there's also a premium aspect. And so for those interested in health, wellness, nutrition, and see the need, $50 year-long membership is one of many things that they got. We did swag, of course, so we have prescribed nutrition grocery bags. We partnered with other companies, and so if you're familiar, there's a company locally called Whole Meat who creates grain-free, paleo, extremely tasty snack bars. They're great friends of ours. So it was about this kind of co-op marketing effort, in which case we reached out to other companies that might want their name in our business and vice versa, and so we included them in it because that was a product we could send. So while I'm not making it, they're getting a little airtime and we're getting a product that they could send. So it was different bundles, and I will have to say that the last box went out yesterday, and so I'm celebrating, literally.
Yeah.
I had a post office in my house.
And so if you were given the option to, give a share of your company, because you still want to give your partner still own all of your company, right? None of your crowdfunders got any equity.
No equity.
Would you have considered that as an option?
Oh, absolutely, because we are raising a private equity round now, and it's slow, and if this was available, I would absolutely be engaging in that right now.
We have a question back there, that's it.
Yeah, my question is about administrative costs. If you're looking to raise, equity through equity financing, what do you see as a percentage of cost for every dollar raised? What's happening in other states, what's happening in other countries where it has been approved? My understanding is at the federal level, that's one of the biggest concerns for the anticipated costs.
The question is about administrative costs to using MNvest were an option.
Sure. So there would be a filing fee for the portal annually. There would be a filing fee for the company.
What are those right now?
$300, so it's pretty nominal. But the actual costs are going to be legal costs and accounting costs and so forth. And so What we are trying to consciously do is get creative about decreasing those costs. Because, once again, we can pass this incredible bill, but if it ends up being more expensive or as expensive as current rounds, despite the fact that you could then raise the capital online, if it's just as expensive, then it won't be necessarily a win for us. So one thing that we are trying to do is partner with software companies, and if there are any techies in the crowd, happy to discuss this with, about automating as many of the processes as possible, namely the creation of the prospectus. Typically, that's something that you have to go to an attorney like myself and pay us big bucks for. And ideally, we would love to review those documents after they've been automated. 80–90% of it's been automated in, say, Q&A software that the company fills out and then bam, it's generated into a prospectus. So that's one way in which we're trying to decrease costs. Also, by allowing non-broker dealers to participate, that's also going to decrease costs. There will be a flat fee if it's a non-BD, and the fee will be paid regardless of if the company closes on the offering. But as many ways as we can to try to decrease costs, we are trying to do. So if you have any ideas in the crowd, please reach out to myself or the senator or Ryan or anyone else that's involved. We would love to chat.
Gordon, question for you based on your research. Are you seeing examples, whether domestic or otherwise, where this is working as intended in the marketplace?
Yeah, so one of the main platforms that we've been studying recently is Crowdfunding, located in London. And they've seen massive success. So I think they've funded over 140 ventures at this point, and it's been going well. So we're in the process of analyzing some of their publicly available data to understand what works and what does not in that context, with a specific focus on the social media component and how these companies are getting the word out, general solicitation and things like that. But that's an example or an instance where it is unaccredited investors being allowed to participate and buying into these companies, and it seems to be functioning very well.
Are some of the basic parameters, especially around caps from the investor or the investee, similar?
No. So basically, when you sign up to the site, you have to just attest to being sort of cognizant of the implications of taking part in these things, and attesting to the fact that I have sufficient wealth to be participating in these things, but they don't have hard numbers, and it's basically a yes or no. Beyond that, it's kind of free range.
You can invest as much as you want.
Basically, yeah. Now that does not work for Americans. They actually now have an explicit disclaimer saying if you're located in the United States and not accredited, you can't participate. Probably because someone contacted them.
Yeah. Probably. Did we have go ahead, Rob?
I think we'd all agree that the Minnesota Angel Tax Credit Program has been successful. And not to overcomplicate things, but is that going to be dovetailed in with this somehow? Investors want that. Can they get it through this mechanism too?
I was actually a chief author of the Angel Investment Tax Credit as well, and so do agree with you that it has been hugely successful, and frankly, given the potential, we've underfunded it. And so I would like this session to revisit both the language in the latest version of that and the idea of funding it, more similarly to what some of our neighboring states have done. The thought of using this in partnership, I have no comment on. I think probably we're smartest to kind of walk before we run and get the basic infrastructure of this program established, and then look for ways to really cross-pollinate with the two programs, but we'll see what Zach says.
Certainly the AITC has been a success. I mean, it runs out each year in springtime. So while that's incredible, it's also a challenge. We've heard anecdotally that many companies wait until the following year to raise their capital because that fund essentially, there's no additional cash left over. Also, the fund was essentially cut in half last year. Half the funds now have to go to outstate, and they're not necessarily going to tech companies. There's different opinions on this. I think the beauty of our bill is that there's no cap on the amount of money that can go through this program. There are no credits coming from the state. At best, this will be revenue neutral for the state, and at worst, it'll be neutral, and at best, it will provide revenue back to the state. And if if that's the case, and we need to bring down the fees, so be it. But we see this as something that can be compared to AITC as a way to create jobs and to incentivize businesses, but also different at the same time.
Just a quick correction on the AITC. It does, if it's not used, if the carve-out is not used by June or July, I believe, for out-of-state female owned for minority-owned businesses, it does roll back into the general fund. So it could be there, could not be. Question?
So if we assume two problems with the bill, potentially, consumer protection and disintermediation of broker-dealers, and we set aside those issues for a second and say, aren't our broker-dealers supposed to be the people who might be able to lend credence to whether or not an investment is legit? Right now, I can't ask a broker-dealer to become involved in a private offering because it's against the corporate rules, the company rules, whether it's Merrill Lynch or anyone else. Is there going to be some sort of provision, and is this actually an answer to the conflict that you're going to see from the broker-dealers in somehow engaging them as advisors without maybe all the same sort of fiduciary responsibilities that they have in a public offering?
I've been talking a lot. I have to answer it. We want to work with as many BDs as possible. We see this as a completely new revenue stream for BDs. It's a different way to approach business, though. From what I've gathered, I don't think it's going to be possible to charge 8 to 12% on these types of offerings, which is market for a BD. This is largely going to be automated online, so you're not going to need registered reps necessarily to pick up the phone and call investors. So we want to work as closely as we can with BDs and non-BDs to get these offerings going. Yes.
I would add one piece too. If you read it, which I suggest everyone in this room does, it's only a few pages and it's worthwhile to understand what the actual print looks like right now. There is, I believe, a role for a BD in MNvest, and that has to do with the fact that the portals are limited in what they can do as a non-registered BD, such as in the simplest sense, all investment opportunities must be represented equally, right? There's no favoritism, there's no promotion or sales of one or the other. So perhaps there's an opportunity for a BD to add value in that situation and provide a layer of diligence to that gentleman's question. They could help provide a little more reassurance in the marketplace that these are valid opportunities. So my perspective, especially having a background in the BD space, I think that there is a time and a place for both the unregistered and the registered. Next question here.
First of all, I'd like to thank you all for volunteering your time. The other side is, as Jeff pointed out, the system is really broken from end to end, whether you're friends and family to the side. And I found in some of these big things, it's an adoption problem. Is there a medium, and this is maybe to Gordon or Zach, a medium between the reward and the ownership type part? Like, if I'm going to put out a music CD or I'm going to put out a nanotechnology that's going to create a revenue stream, can I promise them a royalty stream from it? Or is that the next adoption level possibly to get it more?
That's interesting you mentioned that. So the very first study I did 5 years ago was with data from a platform based in Chicago that was operating on that model. It was a threadless competitor. You design a t-shirt, everybody buys a piece of the t-shirt, if enough people buy pieces, it gets sold, and everybody gets royalties on sales. I don't know if it was legal, because it didn't get successful enough to attract attention from the government. So I can't comment on the legality of the structure of that form. What I can say that would be worth considering, and which I think would be perfectly legal, assuming these things all happen, is mixing the incentives together on the same platform. So incorporating reward options for some people who don't want to invest but want to buy into the company still, and mixing those things together. So actually, Crowdfunding, the one we're looking at now, they're also mixing lending and equity on the same platform. Now, the business has to choose to go one way or the other, but they're all co-listed together. I don't know if that would be a possible thing as well. So basically having an array of options for donors or contributors or whatever you want to call them to opt into should be feasible and would be worth looking at, I think.
Well, and just partly because the pressure coming from Wall Street is the same thing back in the music industry when the labels wouldn't look at rappers until they're selling a million units out of the car. So I just find if there's somewhere happy medium to try and get it through legislature, because you've got a lot of pushback and you've got a lot of big, huge PE firms or big, huge financial firms that don't want this to happen.
I think that's a great point that you bring up. Ryan and I were at a conference and learned that in Georgia, which I think was the very first state to legalize equity crowdfunding, when someone asks, oh, I can only buy this in Georgia, they say, no, you can invest equity in Georgia, and then the other 49 states you get a reward for whatever contribution. So they're trying to blend the two, and that's perfectly legal. Whether a portal in this state could offer a t-shirt in addition to shares in the company, I haven't quite thought about that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, there's one thing to keep in mind. With the interstate exemptions that are happening around the country, general solicitation in other states is an open question whether you can do that, because it's supposed to only be open to people within the current state. So as soon as you start mixing rewards and equity and offering them outside of the state, then the question becomes, are you advertising the equity offering outside of the state, and is that a problem? So I think there's some...
Is a royalty considered equity? Or some sort of a revenue stream? Like if you're creating a bunch of nano products, I like this one, I think it's cool, I'm going to buy it.
It doesn't seem that we know the answer to these questions.
Yeah, I don't want to comment because I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good one though. That was
If you call it a royalty, doesn't make it a royalty. The SEC, for example, will come back and say it could be return on capital.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but it's the problem.
Sure. We have just a few moments left here in this panel, and Zach, I want to ask you, for those who want to have a voice in MNvest, how would they go about doing that?
Reach out to any of us that are involved. You can find us on Twitter at MNvest, hashtag MNvest if you'd like to tweet about this event today. Please go to the website, MNvest.org, sign the petition. Would love to hear from any of you individually. We need companies to support us. We need trade groups to support us. We need the media to pick this up. Because as much thanks as we have to the Strib, which wrote about us last week, and as much thanks as we have to Tech.mn between Jeff and Mike for writing 3 pieces on us, 99.9% of the people have no idea what we're talking about in this room. And so if this is going to be effective, we need as many people to learn about this opportunity as possible. And so we need to begin to market this outstate. And not to go on a rant, but I think that this bill would be just as beneficial for outstate companies as it would be for Twin Cities companies. I mean, in this space right now, you could probably contact someone or pick up the phone and find an accredited investor pretty quickly. If you're 2 hours west of here, I would think that it would be a bit more difficult to find a savvy investor who's done angel deals before. So to the extent that you're 2 hours west of here and you want to raise capital for a restaurant, manufacturing company, etc., and you can do that from the community, from your city, from your county, I mean, that is powerful stuff.
Sure, support it. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think interstate exemption is probably the way to go at the moment, given what's going on federally and the slow progress. I think the benefit and the potential is really there, so I'm pretty excited about the opportunity, and I hope you guys get the support to push this thing through legislation.
Katie, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I guess to echo, I mean, like I said, this is a new space that I'm learning about with the rest of you all. And as a business owner, I have a huge passion for growing not only my business, but the businesses and small businesses around us. And so this is kind of a lifeline, as I can see it, for us. So I'm absolutely excited and supportive.
Well, again, thank you so much for having me here today. And I see folks that I know from other organizations, like I see Lois Josephson and Paul Taylor, Minnesota High Tech Association. The more we can seed our excitement and enthusiasm with other organizations as well, we leverage our ability to have power with regard to this. So please share this enthusiasm with those you know at the Minnesota Chamber, Twin West Chamber, other places that you go, because that is what it's